So I haven't seen my father since I was like 5 or 6 years old. And then my mom, she still had her struggles with alcoholism. So she ended up not having a job or being able to maintain a job for very long. So we lived on food stamps. We were very low income. So I grew up eating a lot of top ramen, macaroni and cheese, and shopping at the 99-cent store. So a lot of processed foods, but honestly, I must admit that she did try her best considering the situation. So we didn't have a ton of desserts or soda, but we still were having like a very grain heavy, not super protein heavy diet. And I wasn't ever really taught anything about health and nutrition. What ended up happening is my mom's problem with alcoholism got so bad that when I was 13, she evicted my sister and I. And then when I was 16, I officially moved out permanently and went to juvenile court and became an emancipated minor. And I haven't spoken to my mother since. That day was like so freeing for me, where I didn't have to feel afraid anymore, because it was just always, you never knew. It was like walking on eggshells. You never knew what was going to happen. I ended up being able to go to college for free because of my story. And I was a track and field athlete all 4 years in college. Right. And I was an economics major, just in general, snacking constantly throughout the day, just because that's what you do. You don't eat designated meals. You just have, you're constantly grazing. And I would have a snack of raisins. I would have oatmeal with cinnamon, with honey inside, with berries inside, plus your waffles, your syrup on top. And that was just breakfast. That's not dessert. And then for lunch, I'd have like a peanut butter jelly, banana panini sandwich. Overall, I thought I was actually eating very healthy, because I would have broccoli and I would have carrots, I would have apples. And I would say that if I was having my handful of spinach, then if at the end of the day I went to have a slice of cake, that's okay, because it balanced each other out. So it's equal. When I was a senior in college, I really craved the attention of men, because of just like, I really wanted someone to love me. Makes sense. So I kind of got in this mode where I'm sure other women can relate, where you just really want to have the best physique, because if you look really good, then men will love you. And so I would work out for maybe, I mean, with track and field, being an athlete, I was working out with the team 2 to 3 hours a day. But then on top of that, I would sneak off in the morning and go and work out and stuff, because I was kind of punishing myself for having too much dessert the day before. And so it kind of got to a point where I was just feeling embarrassed eating food in front of people. Somebody had told me that I looked pregnant when I was walking down the cafeteria, and I should suck in my stomach just because I was so bloated. And then somebody else had said, you know, if you just cut your carbs a little bit, you would have like more tone. I, at that point, wasn't super familiar of what carbs were, other than like bread. I didn't really consider like a banana to be a higher carb food. Would just stop having the bread with my ham sandwich or turkey sandwich. The nutritionist just said, hey, just have a handful of goldfish and everything will start working out. Can you do that for me? So I started having a handful of goldfish a day, and problem solved. But I went into college being 100 pounds just because I was probably in such a calorie deficit my whole life, not having enough money to get enough food. I looked like skinny, but my face was definitely more inflamed, and I just had a lot of water weight holding on to me. And then obviously I was having these mood swings, crying a lot, mental health not in the best situation. So overall, like a roller coaster when you feed yourself foods that don't want to give you complete freedom. So I lived in Hawaii for a couple of years to thaw from the cold, and I ended up meeting my fiance. He had already at that point been a fruitarian, a vegan, a vegetarian. He did pescatarian, Mediterranean. I can only imagine how hard it would be dating somebody nowadays in the world, where you have to approach them and say, hey, like, I don't eat dessert, I don't drink alcohol, I don't have pasta. And he didn't want to do that initially, because that would like scare people away. While being around him, I actually was getting healthier, because I was starting to ask more questions like, why are you having this kind of vegetable versus this one? Oh, because there's lectins, and you read Dr. Gundry's The Plant Paradox. Yeah. And then at the same time, he was getting less healthy being around me. So eventually it got to the point where I just remember coming home one day, and he was just like, kind of looked like a ghost, like a little bit shocked, where he was like, I can't keep eating this way. Like it's just like my health was getting so bad, digestive issues, skin, all sorts of different things, where he said he had already done a ketogenic diet and found so much healing with that, that he was going to go back to doing that. So it kind of just very, very gradually, I started removing less dessert, only having a bite a night, then having it one time a week. I watched Dr. Ken Berry's video on like the BBE, bacon, butter, eggs, salmon, and liver, or sardines, liver. And I thought, well, that's simple. Why do I keep buying all this cauliflower and carrots? So I kind of got on board with the 6 foods thing. I used to have really bad joint pain in my knees from being a hurdler for 8 years. That to have that pain go away was amazing. And my skin cleared up. I saw a lot of people my age now saying that they have PCOS, they're on medications, they have depression, and and they're all gaining weight. Meanwhile, I'm feeling better, more vibrant, more energy, clearer skin, less joint pain, better sleep, and just overall just feel so much better. Just by me doing more research on like what's really in these processed foods, how are they altering my brain chemistry and impacting my mood, and therefore impacting all aspects of my day and therefore my life, giving me low energy, dips and like those peaks and highs where I'm like mood swings, all those things. Even as a woman, my menstrual cycle, I used to skip a cycle. I used to have UTIs. I used to have more complications just like with my reproductive area, where it's so freeing as a woman to know that like, no, everything's functioning and going well. He continued to do it, and it was just easier for me. And then I just really started liking the foods, liking the lifestyle, and never really thought twice about like having a donut again. Because I was like, if I eat a donut, am I going to die tomorrow? No. But is it going to make me feel the best? Probably not. So I can have one if I want one. And I think that that's like a different mindset than other people may have. I'm kind of a moderator, but I'd like telling myself like, you can have whatever you want, but is it going to be worth it? I then posted my first ever what I ate in a day video on YouTube. And I didn't think it was that big of a deal at the time. I just was like saying what I ate, and it was the Ken Berry 6 foods. I got so many questions about that at that time, where people were saying, well, are you allowed to have seasonings? Can you have some blueberries? And I interviewed Sean Baker too, and he told me on my channel, he's like, I'll have a piece of fruit if I feel like I want to have some fruit. I'll have cake on my kid's birthday.
If you're metabolically healthy, I think it was Mary Reddick said, carnivore or something like that, elimination diet gets you into a healthy state. Well, when you're metabolically strong, then you can start adding things in, and you can add a lot of variety, right? Mm-hmm. And you do what you're in tune with your body. It's like weightlifting, you know what muscles are being worked on just by the feel. When you first start, you have no clue.
So I used to do 2 meals in a day because I got on the intermittent fasting train thinking like, this is the ultimate way for health, is intermittent fasting and carnivore at the same time. At this point now, I do 2.5, we'll call it, meals in a day. I was just so full and satiated off of the foods I was eating. And I've never been a calorie counter, so I never realized that I was in such a calorie deficit. And it was because of that video that I had posted that somebody had commented, this girl's starving herself. She's only eating 1,200 calories. How far off am I? Am I supposed to be eating 3,000? Like for my height, I'm 5'2". How many should I be eating? I think at this point, I've kind of come to the conclusion that there is no maximum. It's just as long as you're moving enough, then eat as much as you can and you'll be getting a better metabolism. So a typical day now will include raw milk, raw kefir, raw yogurt, and I will have occasionally some raw egg yolks. I found out that by kind of overdoing eggs, I was doing 6 eggs a day. It was causing my scalp to have dandruff and inflammation, redness, itchiness. So I think eggs are a superfood. I think if people can tolerate eggs, do eggs. And I think all the good nutrition's in the yolk anyway. And a lot of people tend to be allergic to the whites, the avidin in the egg whites. So I don't do the whites and I just do the yolks. I do a lot of beef. I think lamb is great, venison, elk, bison, any kind of meat is great. Just for accessibility wise and affordability wise, beef just is the best option. I will do probably chicken once a week, bacon, and we'll do salmon once a week, sardines once a week. And then we just have a different kinds of variety in terms of like, I have venison short ribs in the house right now. We're going to have like some bison sirloin steaks later tonight. So lots of meat, and then whatever low inflammatory plant foods I want to have. I don't do too many vegetables. I just don't like the taste of very many of them. But even still, I don't have access to a lot of good quality ones. So I think if I had a garden and I was able to make sure it's not sprayed with pesticides, herbicides, and it was fresh, a lot of the produce I have at my grocery stores are shipped from another country that look rotten, moldy, and honestly, considering how little vitamins and minerals someone's getting out of the quantity of vegetables, I think why not have meat and put the money there? So I think vegetables are kind of a ripoff. But with fruit, I like the taste. I think it's sweet. So I'll do that for dessert.
Like PhD level nutrition, right? It's like you don't have a sweet tooth anymore. So that simplifies your life. You've simplified your diet so that now you know when something happens, right? You get a rash or you get a hair problem or digestion issues, you can pretty well narrow down what is it that happened, and you can try it out, right? You can eliminate it for a while. And to me, that's just a fantastic way to approach food.
Absolutely. I mean, when you're eating a standard American diet and you're having, for breakfast, you're having the oatmeal, then you're having sandwich, pizza, chips, having all these different kinds of foods. It's hard to narrow in on, okay, was it the pizza that made my stomach hurt? Was it the chips that made me have the acne? What was the thing that was causing it? Because you're eating so much variety. Also with the eggs, I just, after 2 days of not having eggs, it was like completely like, just like felt like a cooling was blowing on my head. So it only took a couple days to realize, yep, that was it. Sardines and water for sure. If someone is able to find like very good quality sardines in oil, I haven't been able to find them. We used to find the ones in oil from Amazon or Costco, but it says olive oil. I'm not anti olive oil. It's just to have olive oil, I think you have to be like an olive oil connoisseur and know what to look for and what to look out for on the bottles. There's very specific things that we look for in terms of it should have like a ability to track where the olive farm was from. But
Absolutely.
a lot of the companies are going to be using the cheaper olive oils, which unfortunately about 80% of them are known to be rancid or may have canola oil in them. So particularly for people with weight loss, I find that one of the biggest mistakes I see, specifically people coming from eating an animal-based or carnivore keto kind of diet, is people tend to undereat just because the foods are so satiating, so nutrient dense, and they think, well, I'm trying to lose weight, so I should be calorie restricting. I had one woman who initially she came to me and she was having even some vegetables. She was eating a keto diet, so she was having vegetables. She was having the different meats and fats, and we had only spoken once before the next time she reached out, which was 6 months later. And so initially she had all this variety, and as the time went on, she would message me on the side, but she would say, okay, I'm going to remove broccoli, I'm going to remove fish, I'm going to remove chicken, now pork. And she reached out to me saying, I'm eating only beef and I'm not losing any weight. What's going on? And I'm eating 1,500 calories and I'm 5'10". So I said, I don't know where you got the idea that you should be doing beef only. I think people specifically, if they have an autoimmune condition, I think it could be a really, really helpful tool to figure out which foods are causing reactions. But for people who are trying to specifically lose weight, you don't have to go to a beef only diet to lose weight. And I want you to do a diet that's going to be sustainable and also enjoyable, because while 6 out of 7 people who start a diet lose weight, over 85% of them are going to regain that weight within 3 years. But I told this woman, I said, I think one, you should be upping your calories, upping your fat, and even having more variety. Like, you don't have to be just doing beef only. So she was nervous about it because you want to lose weight and you don't want to be overeating. So she ended up adding in more food, adding in more fat, adding in more food overall. And she messaged me a couple weeks later, was like, I've already lost 10 pounds and I don't even know how this happened. I'm eating more food and I'm losing weight. So that's definitely a reoccurring pattern I see with people, is just the idea that calories in, calories out, or calorie restrict when you're eating nutrient dense foods. Well, even protein heavy foods, are just the thermic effect of food are having so much protein. It takes actually a lot of energy to burn that, and we're using more calories to burn the protein. But also when we don't give our bodies enough food, our bodies kind of go in that starvation mode where it thinks, for all it knows, you're in the middle of a deserted island. You could be not having any access to food. It has no idea that you have a grocery store right down the street. So it decides that, okay, instead you're going to give me just this little bit amount of food. I'm going to hold on to it, and I'm not going to lose the weight because I want to keep you alive. 20 to 25 pounds to lose anyway, which that last 10 to 15 is just like usually the hardest. So she's gotten back to that point where she just has that tiny amount left to go, but she's still keeping going strong, and like a 1 pound here and there, which I think is healthier to lose for someone who only has like 10 pounds to lose 1 pound a month, I think is pretty good.